Hello, Maija and Pontus. You work for Rapal, so I will let you explain us what Rapal does and do. But the purpose of the call was indeed to explore the outcomes and the result from a survey you just released, which was very interesting for the co-working community, I think, and the office market community as a whole, but especially for our community of flexible workspaces operators. And one thing which struck me was related to how important mini meetings were. That was one of the findouts that you shared in this report, which overall covers the optimization of workspaces in Europe. But first of all, I might let you introduce yourself. So I am Jean-Yves Vuillard. I'm the CEO of Social Workplaces, and we organize the Coworking Europe conference. And then maybe we can, ladies first, and let Maija introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about Rapal and the report.
Sure, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to talk about our Optimaze Workplace Review. As mentioned, my name is Maija Patjas. I am working for our Workplace Solutions team as a customer and partner relationship manager. I've been with the company for more than a decade and very enthusiastic about workplaces in general. I'm also the Workplace Evolutionaries Hub leader in Finland, so sharing ideas about the changing work in the global scale with the community of IFMA.
I didn't mention you are based in Helsinki. That's important.
Right, that is the happiest country in the world, as was released in the report.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, so working from Helsinki. And a little bit about Rapal before I let Pontus introduce himself, and especially about our Workplace Solutions team. We are helping real estate professionals to lead the workplace and obviously make very complex fact-based decisions to better manage and develop the entire portfolio of their buildings as well as workplaces in general. Through these reviews that we annually release, we obviously want to share information as much as possible for the entire industry on how the changing work is actually affecting the buildings that we occupy.
Definitely. Perfect.
And yeah, I'll let Pontus go from here.
Hey, Pontus, tell us a bit about you.
Thank you for having us. Yes, my name is Pontus Kihlman. I work with Workplace Insights at Rapal, and what we do is provide various services to investigate how workplaces work and how efficiently they're used, and what how to better design and plan and develop your workplaces. And we do this through different methods by collecting data through observation and sensors and surveys and things like that. And with this data, we have collected all this data into a yearly report for sharing with a wider audience to learn a little bit about how workplaces work. So that's what, in a nutshell, where I come in and to share this knowledge with you.
Perfect, perfect. So that's the irony that we all be in our living rooms or office, home office, or bedrooms, just discussing about regular workspaces in others' building. But yes, I should mention also that your report just also mentioned some thoughts about the impact of the COVID-19 crisis. So we are definitely into the context as well. So first of all, maybe, so the report is called Optimaze. It covers 500 locations, I think. Did I see well? Mainly in Europe. And it's one thing which was striking is to me the fact that you notice that only 8.3% of employers uses flex workspace, co-working spaces so far, out of a number, we come from 5.8% 12 years ago. So it didn't increase more than 2-3% in all those times, whereas we speak about a boom of the co-working industry lately. So how do you explain that? Have we a wrong perception, and what breaks or slows the process according to you?
I think you are referring to the Eurostat statistics that are featured in the report about remote work in Europe and how that has been increasing over the years, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And it was especially focused on working from home, which is what we maybe call remote work, from the perspective of the main office. Or working from home, which is now what we all are doing at the moment and practicing. And I think those statistics will surely actually be very old soon, because we are now by force, not just only based on voluntary optional ways of working to work from home, but we are actually forced to learn to use technology and to actually work flexibly from other locations than from the office. And then there are cultural differences, obviously, according to the statistics. But I believe my feeling is that this will encourage people to see the benefits of at least part of the time to be able to work in the mornings or in the afternoons from home, to balance work life and free time, as well as work from other locations than home, because then you actually realize that maybe home isn't the ideal place to work ergonomically. You have distractions and other reasons.
Yeah, we are discovering there was two similar learnings. That one, remote working and digital working is pretty effective, but the other side, that home working can be terrible on the longer run. So there's this dual learning that a lot of people are having right now, right?
Yes, not everyone has the possibility to have enough space and at home to work, focused, like without distractions and other people and things that might not be so optimal for working at home. But having the option to do so every now and then, it is already a cultural shift towards more flexibility. And so
you spoke about
working is something that is can come somewhere in between the office and your home, which is maybe closer to where you live, and you don't have to have long commutes to the office, and this will be environmental as well and save everyone's time and money.
Yeah. So you mentioned cultural differences between countries in Europe. Do you have some patterns you see that some countries are definitely ahead, where the allowance of remote working and flexible workspace is higher than in some other place?
Well, if you look at the Eurostat statistics, then you do see different type of corporate cultures and otherwise also cultures where more hierarchical and authoritarian, or traditionally authoritarian hierarchical countries. Also, that is reflected in the company culture, and that this also correlates with the amount of flex work that is being done. So leading in remote work is the Netherlands and the Nordics and countries like that, with a more democratic, a low hierarchy type of.
We used to say that there is this Protestant Catholics divide in Europe that takes place also for the working culture, and that southern countries are more like the Vatican and the Pope, whereas more in the Nordics you are more horizontal kind of management, and that reflects to some extent in the way you use your workspace. Is it right?
Yeah.
Right way to see it?
Yeah, I could add also that what we see, I think, is that it's still taking us quite some time, even for the Nordic and the Benelux countries, to transfer into that mode of very flexible working. But what's interesting is, I think the countries, for example, in the Baltics, etc., they're actually kind of taking two steps faster than the countries that have tried this longer. So I think we're seeing like a bigger shift in the next 10 years, as more countries are kind of jumping a few steps compared to the ones that are already working more flexibly.
You mean that the process could speed up right now due to also the fact that we are in touch with the world and see that indeed that is taking off in some other places?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. From the report you just issued, I noticed some numbers. So number one, 66% of the time worked, is it right, is solo working. That was
Yes.
one of the outcome. And number two was 27% of the time we were collaborating on average, and 6% of the time we were having calls or things like that. Can you elaborate on that? Is there an evolution with that? And were you surprised by this result or not so much? Maija or Pontus, yeah?
Personally, I'm not surprised. I mean, this is the data collected by observation. This has been collected by someone walking around the office to make observation what people are doing around the office and how many people are occupying the office at one time, and how big groups are assembled in meetings and so on. I think that because knowledge work is mainly about work is done between the two
ears. Yeah.
And in between you have to collaborate and exchange ideas and share information and collect information. But most of the processing happens between the ears, and so you need to allow space for multitaskers, but also focus work. Just really heads down work where you can focusedly process data, information, text, images, or whatever you are working with without distractions, and then allow time and then space for also interaction. But I think productivity comes mainly from individual work.
Sure, and as you Pontus mentioned, the method how we collect the data obviously kind of creates also a challenge that you would capture each shorter moment of collaboration or a quick phone call, because obviously when you're not collecting this data 24/7, you're only getting bits and pieces from the particular organization that you're looking into. So that has to be kept in mind. I think the focus work periods are just longer, so it's easier to capture rather than the quick collaboration and talks that happen in the open office or over the phone. Also, another thing that's very interesting when we look at individual cases, there we see a lot of difference. So companies, I think, that are very far in the flex working tend to have more collaboration within the office, as our data set contains plenty of organizations who are still working more traditionally, as well as then companies who are in a very activity work-based environment. So there can be big differences. I think some of the organizations that we've investigated have had pretty much 50% only individual work happening within the office in the observation.
And the rest being home working, or does it split?
The mode of work that happens outside the office, obviously we don't capture, because this information is collected from the kind of main office. So what happens at home, what happens at co-working places or third places, that kind of is
we only can
question
guess.
Mark for us as well.
And so what does, how do you first of all, do you see a bit differences between the industries? Because that's also something we see, that if you are in the IT industry or in the consulting industry, remote working, flexible working is kind of more natural and create less friction than if you are in the finance industry or in the I don't know, chemical industry or retail things, which are more traditional kind of businesses. So had you the opportunity to also split the result or analyze the correlation between the industries and the level of allowed flex work according to the industry they are in?
Well, Pontus, maybe you can elaborate on this, but from what we see and what my experience in the industry is that there's really no industry segments that are necessarily very different from each other. It's more the company culture and how that's been brought. So we can see very sort of traditional industries or very traditional companies, but at the same time, they can be from the IT sector, or there can be a mining company who has a very, very, great flex work policy, and they've kind of driven that for many years. So there may be some differences, and there is, especially regarding collaboration, meeting sizes and such, that we see that there are some industry differences, but still, I think it comes back to more the company culture.
Okay, interesting.
Exactly, and I believe it's mainly a question of ratios about how what type of worker profiles, mobility profiles you have in your company, and that is partly dictated by the industry, how many mobile workers you have, how many flex workers you could have, and how many people are really dependent on tools or being face-to-face service or working with products and things like that. Physical needs to be present at the workplace versus
I guess also I guess
so
it's also
really
to do with our international your company is. As for an example, we know that in Warsaw, where we had the Coworking Europe conference last year, there were bigger and bigger co-working spaces, but a big deal of those companies and tenants in those co-working spaces were actually international companies opening up antennas and subsidiaries, and instead of just leasing a full building or a traditional office, it was natural for them to go to co-working spaces, also because of the way they could scale up more easily, but also because the culture allowed it.
Exactly. I mean, you could take the banking industry and you can have in the same industry, you can talk about an online banking service, and that would enable 100% of the people working mobile or being the remote workers, whereas another company that's working directly with cashiers and having to have a physical office where people come in to the bank and exchange with customer service. And that obviously the ratio will be different from that company. So generalizing industries on that level is
I wonder whether
different types of.
I wonder whether your mic is not touching your shirt, and we have a noise. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. To switch to what we mentioned previously, we said indeed one of the important takeaway from the report is definitely this understanding of how meeting room operate. And I was not aware that. So according to your survey, there is most of the meetings are for four or less people. So in our co-working space, we used to be either boardrooms or bigger meeting rooms. But actually, another figure which pops up in your report is that 26% of the occupation of the meeting room is done by one person looking for privacy. So can you elaborate on that? Because that's really striking that we are not aware of the importance in modern times of those mini meetings, as you call it in the report.
Yes, Maija, go ahead.
Thank you. I think there's two main reasons. Again, the data set contains information from different types of offices, and as you can see from the data, the privacy kind of search for privacy is bigger in open office plans where you do not have really support spaces. People are sitting in the open areas. So the only way to get some focus work done, to get some privacy, would be to go to a meeting room and do your work there or do the calls there. So that's definitely one aspect. But then when we in general look at, even if you have really good support spaces, smaller meeting rooms, we tend to have a lot more just one-on-one quick calls. Our customer meetings are done remotely. There may be 5 meetings throughout the day when you can participate pretty much from any location. So we just see that people are taking part from multiple locations to these meetings. So I think there's the two different aspects, whether you are offering those types of spaces and you need the privacy and focus, or whether just there's so many smaller meetings and you're doing a lot of customer things online, so that you just want to do that from a room that supports that, making the call and not disturbing others and so on.
It's a great example where we are now currently 3 people attending to a meeting, but not everyone is alone in one room. So
right,
that's
we need those private areas. If we are lucky enough to have a home office, it's good. But indeed, so sometimes we have Zoom calls and you see people that you think they are under the roof or in the garden cabin or whatever, and we do, and indeed that's something that is also striking, that we are not aware of this need of having smaller areas which can be isolated for the sound or for the social noise that you can have surrounding you, and this was demonstrated in your report. It was striking. And to go further with that, what would be your recommendation for today's office planner or people laying out spaces? Because we come from this culture of open office, either in co-working space or in traditional office. And it's true that lately we saw furniture companies building up their walking pods, smaller area. And in addition to what you mentioned, that collaboration was maybe 1/3 of the time, and when you needed to collaborate with some people and those meetings, the home walking was not appropriate for that. So if I put that together, I have the feeling that modern office will be flexible and have a lot of those walking hubs all around. And it's not necessarily so big open space like we used to have in many co-working spaces, and way more small alcoves and areas which are designed for those mini meeting. Am I extrapolating too far, or is it something you take away also from your report?
I totally agree. This, especially now after this crisis will be gone, we will have a radical change in the office industry, I believe. Many drivers, we will notice that yes, it's possible to work from home, but at the same time we miss the social. We are social animals, and we want to be, especially with our team members and the people we work with. So we will understand that we will need a place to see our team, and not necessarily the 200 people that work in your company, not everyone, but especially to have a hub for social collaboration and a sense of belonging and building a community around that, a place to go to. So, but at the same time, when we are released to work more flexibly, we want to have be released from our home desk and sort of have choice, not just based on what type of location we work at, but also within the office, have different types of work settings. And this could be arranged in different, with zoning principles, for focus work, for collaboration, for private calls, and mini meetings, ad hoc meetings, and relaxing a little bit, or having an event space or things like that. Variation will be key in that.
I think coming back to your point, having smaller areas where you have different options is necessary, because you're not going to have people wander around, a big football size floor to go to a phone booth or whatever. So the idea of having the different types of settings really close to you, so that they're easily, founded and easily used as you really need it. That's I think one of the key questions. And I think when you look at the entire data sets and you look at the use of basic, the ergonomic workstations that may be in the open areas compared to the meeting room use, we see that there's a vast waste of space, because the actual workstations are being used even less than the meeting rooms if you kind of really compare the data. So the idea of creating a new mixture of the spaces is super important, and I don't think we have an answer for what the right number is, because again, that depends on the part of the evolution that the organization is in, whether they have just moved into a more flexible office, or if they've been in one for a very long time. But again, that comes back to really not doing a furniture change every 5 or 10 years, but really to consistently look at the data, look at how people are using those spaces, and then moderate accordingly.
So I would look, Pontus?
I also think that there's going to be a change in people being a little bit, both companies and private people will be more cautious about, future-proofing their own economies. And so not everyone will have a home office available, and probably not the budget to get a house with an extra room. So, and at the same time, companies will not want to have too much extra floor space in case of situations like this with these issues. So you will see flexible spaces used as a complement, and maybe a little bit less of that core space, which is used more efficiently, which is also good for the climate with the carbon footprint, because you anyway have to heat the place.
Yeah.
So if you have less space available and use that through a sharing economy, then you are more resource efficient.
It's something that in the co-working industry has been told about for years now, and still coming back to the result, we see that indeed there isn't. Companies are embracing it slowly, but really slowly. So, what according to you can change that? Is it this crisis? Is it
so.
something else? Yeah, can you elaborate?
I think reason doesn't always, or this kind of persuasion that the market, I mean, consultants like you and us have been, trying to tell that benefits for years now. It now comes, through necessity and actually understanding through trial and error, and understanding why as a provider with flexible lease programs or memberships can provide a healthier, both cognitively ergonomic and physically ergonomic workplace better than at home, but also be flexible towards the employer and not having to provide everything just in case, and just sitting there as a resource that is not used. So.
Yeah, I like to talk about, I mean, we're really reluctant to change as individuals. So if you put a lot of individuals together, there's even more reluctancy to change. So I like to talk about kind of like this COVID being more like a heart attack. You've been told by your personal trainer and your doctor before that it's really important that you eat healthy food, but you really kind of acknowledge that and you're aware, but you're still not doing a change. But then you get a heart attack and you really have to do the change if you want to live 10 years longer. And this is kind of the crisis really forcing the companies to take action, because they're going to be a lot of organizations, unfortunately, in really big financial trouble, etc. So really enabling that flexibility that really exists and is there and has been proved makes a lot of sense now.
It sounds like a perfect conclusion. Do you want to add something? Okay, this report is full of a lot of insightful data. So, by the way, you work in the IT, Rapal. You also collect data, so that we can retrieve the more information in the report that will be linked to this video. But would you like to add something, or something that also we didn't raise from the report and that is worth taking note of?
The report is 76 pages long, and it's
with summary,
downloadable.
Executive summary, yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of data and also insights to read about workplaces and the impact of workplaces, both for workers, but also companies and society and the environment in general, and some recommendations of what to do moving forward from now, and how to develop workplaces. The report, name of the report is Optimaze Workplace Review 2020, and it's downloadable on our webpages, rapal.com. And we offer sensor-based IoT, smart-based smart office solutions that enable companies to both gather continuous data for continuous improvement and also to develop their workplace projects, as well as enrich the workplace environment to employees so that they can use the spaces better, find and book free seats and rooms on the go, and so on. So that also is a tool that helps people to use resources in a smart way, which is very ecological in the long run.
Perfect. Maija, do you want to have a ending word or a thought you would like to share?
No, just a big thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I hope this initiates a lot of discussions around the subject. We're very enthusiastic about this because we do see that there's a win-win-win situation for the environment, for the people, for
Yeah.
the financial aspect, etc. So I think we want to encourage people to look at the data and kind of do their own assumptions on findings on how they could improve their workplaces.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And let's end on a positive note. It's not all about the money and the environment. It's also about happiness, because enabling flex work is something that requires a culture of trust in your company, where people are trusted to work without supervision 24/7 and being goal-oriented. It encourages people to plan their days, and it also enables them for some certain type of autonomy, and autonomy is proven to be linked with a feeling of happiness, and so being trusted and feeling autonomous
and empowered,
treated as an adult, then that has a lot to do with engagement at work, and that way also your internal motivation and productivity. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, we used to say that.
Greetings from Finland, the happiest country in the world.
For sure. And yes, and we can add also that a lot of things that we put in front, or that you promote in co-working spaces, that it brings you also diversity. It brings you a lot of empowerment, as you mentioned, and so that it's we used to say it's totally fitting the values of the 21st century. Just that it takes time to be embraced by everybody, understood, and as you mentioned, it's not necessarily the brain which turns here. It's sometimes the reptilian brain more than really the front brain. But indeed, we hope and we believe, and your data support also this shift, and definitely we see that the heart attack, as you mentioned, might and will surely change how we behave and think, and